of the heart flows the issues of life. And many of these issues stem from one's emotional, mental, and spiritual condition. Such issues may oppress, stifle, and even stagnate one from living a healthy and fulfilling life. So how does one progress past such issues and achieve a state of emotional, mental, and spiritual healing? There's help, so open your heart and prepare your mind. It's time for healing to take place in your life. You're in tune to Talking with Dr. Toy, a holistic approach to emotional healing. And now, your host, licensed professional counselor, Dr. Toy Lisa Mitchell.
It's just me and you. I feel so lost, 'cause I don't know what to do.
Well, good Sunday afternoon. You're in tune to another broadcast of Talking with Dr. Toy. Comes your way every Sunday at 1:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. I want to welcome you to the broadcast, and I always want to start out with giving my purpose. My purpose is to provide a holistic approach to emotional healing. Therefore, my mission to provide a holistic, restorative, therapeutic approach in addressing and resolving issues that adversely affect the emotional, psychological, spiritual, and physical well-being of individuals who desire to enhance their quality of life. I want to check in with you just to see how you're doing. I want to give a self-care check. You know how we do it. How are you? And what did you do for self-care this week? Again, so important that we take care of ourselves and that we seek to be active in this process of seeking out coping skills, seeking out those things that assist us in improving our overall well-being. And I'm hoping that you're investing in yourself in this season to do that. And of course, what has been added to that aspect of self-care is this concept of community care. In essence, how did you show up for others, and how did you allow others to show up for you? We definitely need to maintain that balance of caring and showing compassion and connecting with others and allowing others to do the same for us. And having that balance, I do believe, will assist you in definitely taking care of all aspects of yourself in a holistic way. So I am doing those self-care checks, but my hope and prayer is that it's just not ritual and routine, but that you are really pausing to really think about and process ways in which you are enacting these aspects into your own life. So please, by all means, and here's the thing, if you're like, man, I don't even know where to start, I don't even know how to do this, well, we're going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about that today as to where and how, and maybe some ideas and ways for you to really get some assistance in obtaining those things that you need to improve your overall life. Well, last week I talked about this topic of there's no shame in admitting that you have work to do. There's no shame in that, admitting that I'm not okay and I don't even know what to do in order to be okay. We are in the midst of a pandemic. We're in the midst of fears being stoked and stroked with regards to, are we going to contract COVID? What is that going to mean for us? There's a lot of grief and loss around us. And one of the things that is happening is that although we are maybe getting up in the morning, although that we may be clocking into those jobs and all of this, these things are happening in us, around us, and make no mistake about it, that they do have an impact on us. They do. They have an impact on us. And as a result of that, we and I'm hoping that we're giving ourselves the space that we need to know that how I operated pre-pandemic is going to be different than how I'm operating in the midst of this pandemic. You know, I think there was a word floating around that said post-pandemic, but we know that there's been anything but post with regards to this pandemic that we've been in. And although some things may have shifted and all of that, we are very much in this space of knowing that we have to be mindful of how we socialize. We have to be mindful that we do risk and may put others at risk for contracting COVID. And even though vaccinated and all of that, we still need to know that we are contending with this and with those around us. And so that brings this aspect of how we navigate and how we show up is in this context, and it does have an impact on us and in us. And so today, just building on last week's topic of there's no shame, that there's work to do in our lives, I want to talk about this topic today. And I'm just wondering, man, I probably should have talked about this much sooner, but here it is. Listening to podcasts and connecting via social media with regards to podcasts and all of that are really awesome and good things for us to do in order to take care of ourselves, in order to really kind of go inward and see what are some things that I'm needing and what are some things that can help, and not only go inward, but externally seeking those things outside of ourselves to assist us in navigating this life that we're in. And so there is room, there is a space where these tools can help us to navigate aspects of our lives. And so podcasts have become very popular and all of that. And not saying that they can't be helpful, they are helpful. And this is a podcast, right? And so definitely advocating for you to continue to seek out those things that are going to be helpful for you with regards to podcasts and all of that. But I do want to put a disclaimer with regards to this particular podcast, that this podcast, Talking with Dr. Toy, is no substitute for getting in and connecting with a therapist and working with a therapist, doing your own individual work. This podcast is not a substitute for that. And I wanted to really hone in on this because we are in a space where there is a lot of hits taking place with regards to our mental health, well-being. And we've not been in this place before when we've dealt, some of us have not been in this space before, as we are contending with all these things that are facing us, whether it be job loss, whether it be relationship loss, whether it be the grief that many of us are experiencing with regards to the ways in which our lives were lived post-pandemic. And although there's been some things that have some benefits that have come as a result of this pandemic, there's some things that that have been shown to us, some areas in which we've grown, but there's also been a lot of loss. And we, in essence, because of that amount of loss and change and transition and shifting and all of this, it impacts our mental health well-being. And so one of the things that I always have been advocating is listening to, first of all, taking the time to be still and to hear what's happening within your own life, because sometimes we can get on this hamster wheel where we're just doing things, running in place and just trying to survive. And although, as I talked about last week, that these things can be very functional, that we can function with them, we may not be thriving. And so some of us have taken the initiative, which I'm so grateful for, is to look outside of yourself to say, I've not listened to a podcast before. I've not read this particular book before. And my thing is that that's beautiful. I'm grateful. And here's the thing, continue to do those things. But some of us, and maybe not all of us, but some of us may be in a space mentally and emotionally and spiritually where those things may not be enough. Those things may not be enough. And you may not have the support system in place to assist you in doing your work, to assist you in encouraging you to do your work. Some of us are in social networks where we may be the go-to person, and there are people who are not used to us needing help, right? Needing an ear. And so part of your process, you have been recognizing that I'm not functioning the way that I functioned pre-pandemic, that I'm finding myself that I'm crying a little bit more, that I am a little more needy, and I not as, and we're using this in air quotes, strong as I used to be. And some of what's happening is that we are that powerful inner critic that we have is just saying, well, there's something wrong with you because you're not doing those things that you used to do. You used to take a ticking and take a licking and keep on ticking, but now it takes you longer to get up. It takes you longer, and you're sad a little bit more, and all of this. And so we're looking and evaluating these things in our lives, and we're assessing ourselves, saying something's wrong with me. Something's wrong with me. And so we say things to ourselves like, get yourself together, girl. You can't afford to be this way, man. You gotta man up. You gotta woman up. You gotta do all things. And we're saying these things to ourselves, trying to, maybe motivate ourselves. But when we say some of this self-talk, this negative self-talk, more of what it's doing is that we're taking hits with regards to our self-esteem and our ability, our self-efficacy, the belief in our ability to do things. And so even this negative self-talk is not helping the way it used to. And so you've been noticing these things happening, but you've been internalizing it as if something is wrong with you. And you've not been able to broaden the context that there are things that are acting on us, that are having an impact on us. And sometimes we're not aware of how it is, of how it's doing it, and how it's impacting us, because we are so tunneled vision to be like, if I can just make it to the next step. And listen, I hear you. I'm just trying to survive. But we are unaware of how these things are acting upon us. And as a result of that, our bodies, because, we talked about this aspect of how our bodies are the truth tellers of what's happening. We can fool our mind and we can trick our mind, but our bodies are telling us we're fatigued, lack of energy. It does take us longer. I'm feeling this anxiousness that's always present with me now, and it's hard for me to shake it. I've had to maybe indulge a little bit more in the alcohol or the substance use just to calm my nerves. Where I used to drink maybe one glass of wine, I'm finding myself drinking two glasses of wine. I find myself trying to drink more coffee, where I used to be able to get by in 1 cup. Now it's about 2 cups in, and all of this. And we're seeing some things that have shifted. And because we are on this kind of like hamster wheel and tunnel vision, we don't understand why it's happening. All we're seeing and noticing is that it is happening, but there's no explanation, because we haven't taken the time to really be still enough to understand that there's things happening in us that warrant our attention. And what is happening is not that you are deficient, that something is wrong with you. It's about what has happened to us in this space that we're in. And as a result of that, it may be time for you to do something different. It may be time to invest in some things that you have put on the back burner, and you have said, well, not for me, I'm getting by. But you're noticing that you're struggling more. And although podcasts and self-help books are helpful, you may be in a point in your life where you may need something more. And hence, I want to say, this podcast and some of those self-help things are not a substitute for your own individual work and what that may look like in your life. It may look like you engaging in therapy. And I hear, people say, no, well, not everybody needs therapy. No, not everybody needs therapy, but there are people who do. And that it would be helpful because, as I stated before, you may not have a support system around you that can help you. And even those that are around you who may be able to listen to you don't have the expertise, don't have the tools and all of that to help you navigate through what you are experiencing in a place where you experience healing, restoration, revelation of what's happening in your life and the path that may be helpful for you to move in a place of holistic healing with regards to your mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical well-being. And although you have a support system that may mean well, they may not have the tools to help you. And so you may find yourself speaking with this friend and say, well, usually when I used to speak with them, I used to feel so much better. But now you're saying, I don't feel that. I don't, because your need may be greater now because of the context in which we're living in. And so there's no shame to do the work in your life, but there's also no shame in seeking assistance to do that work in your life. You may need more than listening to a weekly podcast. You may need more than reading a book. There are things in your individual lives that I have no clue as to what you are experiencing. I don't know your background. I don't know your history. I don't know your temperament. I don't know your support system. I don't know these things about you. Now, my clients, yes, but I don't know those things about you. And so although this podcast may be helpful, and I pray, Lord knows I pray that it is, it may be a tool, but you may need other tools in your mental health toolkit to help you work through some of the things that you are experiencing and have experienced in your life. There is no shame in asking for help and assistance. And listen, not only may we be open to asking for help and assistance, but we also may need psychotropic meds to kind of help us navigate this space. If there's been some areas, and I know when I say antidepressant medication and all of that, I know some of you are like, oh no, I don't want to do that. And I understand it. And I'm not saying that has to be your first go-to. But what I am saying is this, is that if you have been in a place of depression more than 6 months, more than a year, and you are having issues functioning, sleeping, eating, motivation, and you are having suicidal thoughts, you have thought about ways to harm yourself, you have thought about this, my hope for you is that you reach out and get the help that you need. First of all, if you are experiencing suicide ideation, having those thoughts, there are avenues, there are resources for you to tap into. For those in Nashville, Tennessee, I want you to look up the crisis line. The crisis line in Tennessee, that there will be someone to speak with you about the crisis that you are experiencing. Those of you who may not be in Tennessee, look up suicide talk line, suicide ideation, suicide prevention. Look up that information so you can get a phone number. There's even text lines that you can access so that you can get the help that you need. There is no shame asking for help. And so I want to emphasize this very strongly. If you've paused and you've been looking at your life and you are recognizing that things that used to help me get through are not working for me right now. Listening to this podcast has been helpful, but I'm still walking away with this anxiety, walking away with this depression, don't know which way to turn, don't know what to do. My hope and prayer for you is that you would recognize that you need something more, and that this podcast, and even though some of those social media tools that are out there, you may need more individualized attention and assistance. And that is okay. It is okay. There's no shame in that. There is no shame in that. Listen, I would rather for you to tap in to a therapist, mental health provider, individually, than to listen to this podcast. That's how strongly that I want for you, that I want you to get the assistance and the help that you need. I know, listen, I know that you may be scared because you've not done it before. And listen, I know that some of you say, and I'm hearing you say, I've done that before. I've reached out. It just wasn't helpful for me. And so I gave up on it. I know that there are people, and I've heard it from clients who have had negative experiences as far as therapy, and they've thrown the baby out with the bathwater. And I get that. I understand, because sometimes, listen, it is difficult being vulnerable in those places, and finding places of safety can be difficult in the society in which we live. And when you are in a vulnerable place, it takes a person to be present with you, and to be able to be not only present, but to hear you, and to know you, and to create that safe space for you. And when you've been harmed, and this happened in the medical community, we realize that the health disparities that are there with African Americans and seeking not only mental health aspect, people of color, people of color seeking mental health facilities, seeking out those opportunities, and also even those who have experienced woundedness in the medical field. We know that history, and it's not only history, but it's still present, that persists. We know that. However, here's my encouragement for you. My encouragement for you is this, is that what we've done is that we've made allowances for us to, maybe if there's a gym that we don't like, or we tried this gym and it just didn't work for us, we'll try another gym. Or we'll try another physical trainer that, man, this one didn't work out. Let me try another physical trainer. Let me try another nutritionist. It's like we'll give those places another opportunity. We'll say, hey, this was just a bad experience. Let me find another one. My hope is that if for those of you who have experienced being wounded in therapy experiences, that you would, and it is a place, it is a space of cultivating courage and bravery. But my hope is, and my prayer is, that you will get up and try it again. All therapists are not a fit for clients. There are clients that are not always a fit for me, and I'm not always a fit for them, and that's okay. It is okay. However, there is a person there that I believe that will be that for you. And sometimes it's treasure seeking. We gotta continue to seek to find that gold. But you are worth it. Your mind, your body, your soul, your spirit are worth it. And here's the thing. I want to say this too, that not only am I advocating for this aspect of being open to doing something different and new, here's the thing. The therapy piece does not have to be separated or either or of your spirituality. It doesn't have to be either or. It can be both and. I love God and I have a therapist. Yes, I love God and I have a therapist. I pray and all that, and I have a therapist. We don't have to make it a either or choice. It can be both and. God can use those avenues to assist you in this space that you're in. Some of you have even said, I keep praying and I keep praying and I keep praying and nothing has changed. And some of this may be that you are definitely praying, but you have your own idea and way in which you want that assistance from God. And anything outside of that box doesn't fit in your paradigm. And could it be that maybe in this season, God is looking outside of that paradigm and saying, here's the way I want you to go. Will you have ears to hear, to follow that path? And so my hope for you as we talk about this aspect, there's no shame in asking for assistance. Whether it may be time for you to reach out for a therapist. Now, let me say this. In this space that we're in, it's a bit difficult. Well, I don't want to say difficult. Let me say this. It's not as readily available as it was back in the day. So you may get some therapists who are saying that they're no longer taking new clients right now. So my hope is that please don't be discouraged. Keep trying. There are therapists who are taking clients right now. Some of you may say, well, I don't feel comfortable going into an office right now. Listen, as a result of this pandemic, many therapists are offering virtual sessions where you don't have to go into an office. Some of you may be saying, well, I don't have the money for that right now. And my hope for you is to say, listen, if you're employed and you have health insurance, check your health insurance, because some insurances have employee assistance programs where they may provide 5 or several sessions for you at no cost, especially in this space. Seek that out. Some of you may say, well, I don't have insurance, and so I don't know how I would go about doing that or looking for those opportunities. My hope is for you is look at organizations like community mental health organizations, where they may have safety net programs, where they may have a sliding fee scale, and all of that. My hope is that you would do at least the research. It may be scary because this is an unknown area for you, but here's what I would even say. But being in this space that you are in now, is that scary for you? Is that scary for you where you're like, I can't shake it? My hope is this. There's nothing wrong with you. It's what has happened to us. The impact of this pandemic and the things that have happened as a result of the pandemic, the grief, the loss, and also, and I've talked about it before, in this racial reckoning space that we're in, and the political and all of this. We're only human, guys. It's going to have an impact on us. And as a result of that, what you were able to do 2 years and be 2 years, let's say pre-pandemic, may not be working for you. And when something is not working, it does beg us to take a step back and to say, what is it that I need? And let me be okay with that. That's going to help me improve my mental, emotional, spiritual well-being, so that I can live a life that's full, that's meaningful, that's purposeful, that's not always burdensome and heavy. And if my support system is waning, and if my support system can't support me in that, God, show me the path of a support system that can. And let me be open enough to trust your direction, that you know what you're doing, and that you have thoughts. Your thoughts towards me are to give me a hope and a future. Let me trust you in that, God. And even though I don't know what that looks like, let me trust your leading and guiding, because you know what's best for me. Again, this podcast is not a substitute for your individual work. My hope is, look deeper, extend farther, and maybe do healthier and beneficial things that extend beyond that old paradigm for you. Listen, I care for you. I want you to get what you need. That's all I have time for today. Relentlessly and intentionally pursue authentic and genuine relationships vertically with God, horizontally with others, and inwardly with yourself. Maintain and sustain a keen sense of awareness and ongoing discovery about self as well as others. Take good care of you and engage in things that are helpful for your mind, body, soul, and spirit. And remember, out of the heart flows the issues of life. Let's continue to talk about it and continue our journey towards emotional healing. Until next time, bye-bye.
You've been in tuned to Talking with Dr. Toy, providing a holistic approach to emotional healing with your host, licensed professional counselor, Dr. Toy Lisa Mitchell. Please connect with me at talkingwithdrtoy.com or Facebook at Talking with Dr. Toy, or email talkingwithdrtoy@gmail.com. I would love to hear your story. and hear your heart regarding the issues of life you may be experiencing. Remember, out of the heart flows the issues of life. Let's continue to talk about it. I look forward to hearing from you. Thanks for listening, and please join me next week for Talking with Dr. Toy.